As you may have read over the last week, week and a half, while there was a lot of panic, a lot of criticism going around um, on the radio. If you read LSUODYSSEY.com's work, you saw or watched our appearances on some shows. You saw nuance, you saw depth, you saw layers to what is a very complex situation with LSU recruiting. And what we said and wrote equally was that LSU were about to do damage throughout July. As we wrote, as we predicted, and that those crystal balls followed, and all that followed, and now look who we got. Jackson Howard commits July 1st, kicks things off. Our highest rated player, defensive end out of Minneapolis, Robbinsdale. Huge time get for LSU and Jamar Cain. Then 2 days later, Joshua Mickens. That Sunday, July 3rd. And then today, capping it off, Darron Reed, highly coveted defensive end. And then Deshaun Womack out of Baltimore. So highly national makeup to the defensive line work here from Jamar Cain. You got Baltimore, you got Georgia. It's interesting. It's interesting. This is a weaker LSU defense. Weaker Louisiana defensive line class in 2023, and so that's why you see Cain looking for his established relationships in Indianapolis with Mickens, and then Jackson Howard up in Minneapolis, Minnesota, going up to the Midwest to get some defensive line talent, and very impressive haul here. Four 4-star plus defensive line talents grabbed in the last 3 days. Incredible recruiting rampage here from LSU. So the sky was falling, but we knew it was going to be falling with commits and people hitting the panic button. I understood the disappointment over losing Derek Williams. I'm a big fan of the player. I understood the disappointment over losing this player or this player. The potential of losing this guy and this guy from Louisiana. But I also said, I'm going to prepare you for LSU to go with those national established relationships for at least this first class and really try and bank on what is known rather than unknown. Because there's a lot of local Louisiana guys who could be going to different schools abroad, different schools elsewhere. But when you look at the top 20, there's guys that, Brian Kelly, this staff just have to hit, especially when you have a staff that's made up of, Frank Wilson, Cortez Hankton, Robert Steeples, but really focus on the Louisiana guys. You got Frank Wilson, Cortez Hankton, Joe Sloan, guys know how to recruit Louisiana with almost a decade plus of doing that. Half of that staff, Carter Sheridan, there's a bunch of these random guys on the staff too who have Louisiana background. Half of that staff, Brad Davis as well, Louisiana native. Half of that staff know how to recruit Louisiana. Half of that staff are national. We got to call on that other half of the staff. We've got to get Sheldon Sampson Jr. We've got to get at least one of Curly Reed or Jordan Matthews. If Toviano is Javian Toviano, is in play, which is a possibility, then that's fantastic. That would be great. LSU just missed on Christian Gray, though, went to Notre Dame. Um, so you're seeing LSU go for 3 stars, Stamps, who committed today at cornerback, and then you got Jeremiah Hughes, who is very highly likely, 99% probability going to commit to LSU on July 7th out of Bishop Gorman in Vegas. And I'm wondering if those 3 stars were there to make up for the expected loss of Christian Gray. But you've got to hit on Curly Reed or Jordan Matthews. And then Kylan Jackson, he's a very interesting prospect, a safety as well, Louisiana prospect. You've got to get this young man. Especially if Omarion Miller does not return to the fold and goes to Nebraska with Mickey Joseph or elsewhere, you've got to get Harvey Broussard III. And there's also there's talk of this staff being able to flip quarterback Ricky Collins and his Purdue commitment. I'm hearing enhanced confidence that Ricky Collins might be the guy that they zone in on, go after, and try and do some flipping, do some flippage. That would be interesting. That would be very, very, very telling. Got some comments. Tari Love, thoughts on Dante Moore? I think he might be going to Oregon. So Rivers is, all fussy over here and wanting me to pet him. Rivers, nice. Dante Moore. LSU have done a great job recruiting him. There's a chance LSU still might have an opportunity to get him, but I think Dante Moore is more likely to head to Oregon more than LSU right now. I think LSU would be second in the race right now, but still they recruited him hard, still continuing to. But things were trending very, very well for Dante Moore and LSU for a while there, especially in May. And then mid-June, it seemed things started to flip once he visited Oregon. Yeah, I wonder where this class is heading. In fact, I've got some information that may be saying that linebacker Amari Washington might be the next commitment for LSU to drop, possibly even tonight. So prepare for an Amari Washington decision potentially to LSU. I'm hearing information on that is very tantalizing, coming from a good source, and then I saw something on social media that kind of also made me go, "Oh my gosh, I just heard something," and now Jackson Howard just posted something that made me like, "Okay, wow, that's funny." The timing there was very interesting, but defensive line was a big worry coming into this class, and they're addressing it early, right out of the gate in July. Mickens, Howard, Reed, Womack, all just bam, right in a row. All 4 stars, all 4-star higher talents. It's very impressive, very impressive. 4 different states, very impressive from Jamar Kane here. Um, and Brian Polian as well, recruiting as it was, Brian Polian was very key in recruiting someone like Joshua Mickens, who they had prior contact with. See, these are the things. These are the things I was saying all along. Is LSU staff are going to rely on the relationships they've had before they came to LSU. And they may take some hits. There may be an adjustment period for them to understand how to recruit Louisiana players potentially. Um, Maybe they already understand that, and maybe they just don't like the players that are there. Um, there's a lot of different things that this staff, I feel, have checked the box on. Obviously, it's all going to matter on the field, and whether wins or losses with this staff success. As far as recruiting, I don't think you can say the staff are an immediate failure because they lost Derek Williams and Arch Manning. They just climbed from 47th to 15th in the recruiting rankings, basically overnight. Um, and that's what LSU's brand is all about. That's how strong the defensive line brand at LSU is, even with the new defensive line coach. And it turns out this is a defensive line coach, the best, the most elite talent out there want to play for. Question is, does Collins Akimpong shy away now that 3 different edge rushers, potentially 4, have just been signed by the Tigers? I don't think so. But I think it does make the job a lot tougher. Get someone like Collins Akimpong, maybe Miami are now more in the lead there. But defensive line was a big worry. Losing B.J. Ojolari, Ali Gay, Jaqueline Roy, potentially Jacobian Guillory. We lost Sony Fanua in the transfer portal. Joe Evans in the transfer portal. That's 6 guys right there that you've got to replace going into this season. Um, it's That's a lot of talent to replace. They're starting to just come right out of the gate swinging and just absolutely nailing it with these defensive line targets. And people are freaking out that they're not from Louisiana. I got to tell you that the Louisiana talent at defensive line is just not there in 2023. That's why the targets are elsewhere as well. It's not that they can't recruit Louisiana, it's that they don't want to with defensive line. And cornerback, that's the second biggest worry, as well as receiver. You offensive line, I'm not worried about offensive line. We're gonna get Tyree Adams and Zolens Hurd in this class. And we already have a ton of depth and a ton of bodies at offensive line. I think we've started to figure that out at offensive line, getting a lot of different bodies in there. Some good walk-ons in there as well. Joshua Billadou has come in and played well. Lanson Smith has come in and played well. There's so many tiers of depth when you actually really think of the offensive line. We didn't even have Anthony Bradford or Marlon Martinez or Garrett Dellinger throughout spring. Think about that. Think about that. That's how much depth we have there. We haven't even seen Thomas Perry there. That's how much depth we have in offensive line. I'm not worried at offensive line. Brad Davis will figure that out, and he'll build it all around. Guys like Will Campbell. Defensive line is something we needed to figure out, and this is a great establishment here to figuring that out. DB and receiver are now the main pieces for me. Figuring out cornerback, figuring out safety, and then figuring out receiver. Safety, we've done that. I think Ryan Yates is a very talented player. I think Michael Doherty is really good as well too. Got a Grayson. Um, I would like to see them get one more high-powered safety, one really good safety talent. And for me, that's Kylan Jackson coming out of the state of Louisiana. Then you get either one of Curly Reed or Jordan Matthews. I'm not sure if that's possible. Jordan Matthews out of Woodlawn, Curly Reed out of Lake Charles College Prep. Is that possible? Are the I don't really think that it's because LSU staff can't recruit Louisiana. I think it's just they're all victims of timing right now. The transition, the switch of coaches, all of this stuff. I think it's just affecting certain things on the recruiting trail with certain positions. But I don't think it's going to matter in the end. I think LSU are going to come out with a really strong class here, a top 20 class that's going to do what it needs to do and figure it out. I think it's going to be great. I think as long as they can make sure there's no gaps in talent at receiver and defensive line, that's where the problems will be. If there's gaps in the defensive line talent, there's gaps in the cornerback talent, especially at DB, that's when you get destroyed, and that's when you get embarrassed. Defensive line, it looks like, just like I had been saying, if you've read the site, if you've watched our appearances, Jamar Kane is going to have it on the lockdown because he's had these relationships established for a long time. Steeples had to start from scratch with a lot of these guys, or really work in a crazily rushed manner because he's having to figure out a very ripped apart DB room too, with a bunch of new transfers. So it's like, Steeples is basically working with two sets of freshmen in a way. Like, it's, I get that they're veterans, but so many new players, so many new coaches. It's all an adjustment process, and I think Steeples had a lot more going against him, obstacles in his way for this class. And will Cortez Hankton have the same? Will Sheldon Sampson Jr. be a player that LSU lose? I don't think so. I feel like Sheldon Sampson Jr., all that's trending towards LSU, but then again, the allure of a lot of money, the allure of an NIL deal, Alabama, Nick Saban, championships, um, they can offer some things that LSU didn't show the last few seasons. But it seems as if Sheldon Sampson's moving in the right direction. Thank God, because losing Kayshon Boutte, losing Dre Jenkins, having Kyron Lacey, Jack Besh, Chris Hilton Jr., Brian Thomas Jr., Malik Neighbors, all in their money years, basically, the year after. That's a precarious position to be in when you're talking about receiving talent. You've got to keep it going. You've got to keep it flowing. And they accomplished that with the defensive line today. I don't think anybody can look at those defensive linemen and say those guys aren't going to be stars, or all those guys are going to transfer or something like that. I think, from looking at it, Jackson Howard is that alpha of the group. I think Jackson Howard is the alpha of the group, but Joshua Mickens adds a lot of length, versatility, interior rushing ability, as well as outside. I'd like to see him improve in that position as well. Deshaun Womack, though, has a lot of versatility that has gone unnoticed. And very, very, these are very interesting prospects that Jamar Kane went out and got here. And Indianapolis, Baltimore, um, Minneapolis, Georgia. It's Carver, Columbus, Georgia. It's LSU's brand is. You didn't think it would go even further into the national realm with Brian Kelly. Well, here it is. Hope everybody's 4th of July is going good. Oh, we got some comments. We're talking the 2023 recruiting class, but um, I'm getting information that Amari Washington could be the next LSU Tiger to commit here. Chandler, defensive line. This is someone who's out of Arizona. 6'4", 295. Some project him to finish out being a linebacker, but this is someone pursued by Ohio State, Oklahoma, Michigan State, Dan Lanning's Oregon. So many are in the hunt for Amari Washington. Sorry, sending some stuff to some recruits and coaches. Um, this has been a very monumental recruiting day for LSU, especially for Brian Kelly coming into the SEC. Everyone's wondering, can he recruit in SEC country? Can he recruit? And I understand. He went to the Midwest for two of these guys. Two of these guys would have followed him likely to Notre Dame. I don't know. Do you think Jackson Howard would have followed him to Notre Dame out of Minneapolis? I know Mickens would have. Jackson Howard's one I'm kind of wondering about. But getting Darron Reed was huge for Jamar Kane. I feel like Darron Reed is an overrated get. An underrated get here. When you look at who was after him, one of the best pass rushers of the class. Darron Reed, one of the best defensive linemen overall, one of my favorite overall of the class. Absolutely versatile, an absolute freak. And when you actually watch his tape out of Carver, you'll be like, that guy belongs in an LSU uniform. Mickens, you might think, oh, he's too lengthy. He kind of is maybe like a linebacker, just a pure lengthy edge rusher. You might have some gripes about whoever, but I don't think you'll have gripes about Jackson Howard. I think Jackson Howard's going to be a 5-star by the end of things in high school. I think Deshaun Womack is going to be really, really damn good when all things are said and done. I think maybe not a 5-star, but he'll still be in that high 4 echelon. And I really do believe this defensive line class has it set up right. I mean, just barely. I'm getting recruits telling me that it's all about competition to win championships and all this stuff. These kids want to win it, and Darron Reed coming in after those commitments proves that, and it's very exciting for LSU. Very exciting. We do need linebackers. We do need linebackers. Yes, we do need linebackers. Justin Jefferson just committed to Alabama. He was someone we were looking at. Um, Aiden Osbury, I don't like our chances with Jaden Osbury at all. I like our chances with Chase Basantis, someone in New Jersey, offensive lineman. I really like. We've I don't, if you've followed anything about LSU recruiting, you've seen his name posted a lot. Chase Basantis. He's someone that I'm very keen on watching his footage. Just absolute animal out there. Um, but there's still some big time targets here. LSU could get Javian Toviano, one of my favorite players in the class, 5-star out of Texas. Um, just absolute freak. Just an absolute menace. Things are really, really heating up with him. Things are really, really going in the right direction with Toviano, which was so many people said Toviano was no way going to LSU. No way Toviano's going to LSU. No way Toviano's going to LSU. But Toviano and LSU looking like they could be closer, perhaps, than many thought. They'll have to battle it out. I've done many things on the site talking about, our personal feelings on uh, who should be quarterback. Um, there was something about Arch Manning when he recruited where we went into talking about the LSU quarterbacks, and I was put on the spot. And who would be your starting quarterback? And I said Garrett Nussmeier because he has what the other he completes what the other two veterans can't do. He can run, whereas Miles Brennan cannot. Miles Brennan cannot extend plays whatsoever. Jane Daniels can extend plays brilliantly, but sometimes his passing arm is questionable. 10 interceptions last year. Um, and so Nussmeier, to me, felt like the best of both worlds. I really loved how he played in the spring. It was very mature, a lot of rhythm to the offense. At the same time, he's inexperienced, and we're going to find out a ton about Brian Kelly and how he's going to coach in the SEC, if he's going to be safe and he's going to go with Miles Brennan, or if he's ready to gamble and roll the dice and he goes with Garrett Nussmeier, or perhaps even Jaden Daniels might be a gamble at that point. Um, that's kind of how I view it, in my opinion. But at the same time, I also haven't decided 100% because I want to see how they're gonna battle in the fall, how it's going to who's going to be the last man standing this fall? That's really it for me with quarterback one. And there's so much content on this on the site, so much I've written about it. If you look up our QBU section, or if you just look at any of the quarterbacks' personal sections on LSUODYSSEY.com, right there, there's so much content, and it's all as up to date as right now as we're talking. There's nothing that's so old on there. There will be content on there about the quarterbacks that is as up to date as what I'm telling you right here. But thank you, Turd Ferguson, my man. Yeah. Anyway, there's every chance that LSU could end the night with one or two more commitments. So buckle your seatbelts and get ready for some craziness. I don't think this recruiting staff is done whatsoever. There's, even though the dead period has started, they had some work and some plans, and some commitments, and some things have been settled, and there's a lot of criticism, and justifiably, about can they recruit in Louisiana, but at the same time unfairly, because there's just so many obstacles against Brian Kelly's staff. It's far too early, and also at the same time, even with the time, there's been that learning curve they've needed where how to recruit Louisiana players, some of them, and some of the issues with rubbing recruits the wrong way at certain times, stuff like that. But I think all of that will get figured out. I think there'll be no problem with that in the end once everything becomes more uniform and streamlined within the Kelly staff. And really, they're flying right now. There's no hotter college football staff right now as far as getting recruits and top level guys. Bam, 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 bam. Just went from 47th to 15th in the country, and there's no stopping them right now. This staff are built to last. I really feel like, they always say we, not me, and they're always so afraid to take any little bit of praise I may give, but it's interesting. Tari Love says 2024 class is the one to judge Brian Kelly on. Yes, it is. You can still judge him on the 2023. Him missing guy, like if he missed Shelton Sampson, that would be there's no excuse for missing Shelton Sampson. There's no excuse for missing Zalance Hurd. There's no excuse for missing Harvey Broussard III. There's no excuse for missing at least one or two of Kylan Jackson, Jordan Matthews, or Curly Reed. There's no excuses for missing some of those players. This is LSU. You offer them, you recruit them hard, you get them to go to the school. The LSU offer carries itself. Will they be able to flip a 2023 Louisiana quarterback in Ricky Collins? I think with a lot of dedication and intensity and focus towards him being the guy finally, that can happen for LSU. Anyway, everybody have an awesome, awesome, awesome 4th. Take it easy, be safe, be careful. There's a lot of craziness going on. Really, really horrified about what happened. I believe it was in Chicago. Yeah, Highland Park, Illinois. 6 dead and 24 injured in shooting. Be very careful. Be safe. Have fun. everybody. Have a good one.